and the industry, well, not the entire industry, but his own company. He is a guest lecturer and has spoken in hundreds of colleges across the globe, including the IIMs and the best of Ivy League schools across various universities. And he is an author by himself. So if you ask me, I can probably read 8 pages of a book in a day, but this guy, he writes 8 pages of books in a day. I'm sure he writes much more, but he's an author. And last but not the least, he's an aspiring stand-up comedian. So if you found me funny, even 1%, guys, come on, you can give me that much, you'll definitely find his jokes funny. But the only part is that the people who he's going to be speaking with in this inaugural ceremony aren't probably going to be the type or of the stature that he can crack jokes with. So he's going to leave that to me and hopefully have the sensible and intellectual conversation with all of you. I'm sure you guys by now would have guessed who I am speaking to. He is the individual who conceptualized and started this organization back in the year 2011 and is responsible in a small way to bringing the concept of Model United Nations over to 7,500 schools across India and internationally, to 220 cities and to 35 countries across the world. He is also the reason why conferencing today during a pandemic on such a lovely platform using some of the latest technologies has been possible. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please put your virtual hands together in welcoming none other than the founder and president of India's international movement to unite nations, Mr. Rishabh Shah.
Well, thank you for that very generous, very generous introduction, Abhishek. I heard the important part that I give you a lot of work, but then that's what we're supposed to do in the organization. A lot of work in trying to get young people together so that we can do things on ground and we can emulate the leaders that we actually call in out here. And today we're joined, I of course can't do any stand-up comedy today, but I'm sure she has a very jovial side to her as well. She's mostly serious looking when she is in her formal role, and she smiles as much when she's talking to young people. Today, without any further ado, hello guys. Some people are like completely dead. Hi guys, hello, good evening. Where's the energy? Right. So today we have somebody who is known for many achievements. You know, she's known as the first woman IPS officer. She's known as somebody who's been decorated for her work in terms of her work representing India internationally and so on and so forth. But I know her as somebody who has silently helped the helpless during this pandemic. Quite honestly, I know a few people in Puducherry who basically say, had it not been for her, there would be a massive problem for the people of Puducherry. It is a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be able to say that, you know, Puducherry at one point in time had COVID-19 patients that were 1 lakh per 1 lakh in the per 1 lakh population in the country. They had the highest number of COVID-19 patients. And from that, now to almost double digits and slowly, I'm sure, to single digits, she single-handedly led the fight against COVID-19. I'm humbled to introduce a role model who speaks less and does more. And she's like a karma yogi who propels the country towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's, like I said, an honor to be able to welcome Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, Srimati Kiran Bedi ji. It's a pleasure to be able to have you here, ma'am. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for being here. If we can unmute ma'am and we can spotlight her, that would be very... Okay. So we're getting her from the audio feed, and
Rishabh, could you please play her audio? She will join shortly. You can please play her introduction audio. Thank you.
Great. So I think they played the introduction audio at 3:50. And what, Asha ji, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
So we're just waiting for her to come. Till then, I'll engage with the young people who are overexcited, and you can see in the chat section, everyone.
Just you keep them busy. You seem to be quite a popular person there, and she'll just be with us in a moment. Thank you.
Sure. No, these are some of the people who are writing all the positive stuff are the ones from I.I.M.U.N, who've been told saying keep up the positivity always. The real delegates of GAP of United Kingdom is not smiling as much. Delegate of United Kingdom, now he's smiling. Now I took his name, so now he's smiling all of a sudden. But it's so nice to see delegates at one point in time, being in an M.U.N conference and now being on the other side. I feel rather old in a way, but at the same point in time, I feel I feel the amount of pressure on me has reduced dramatically, because I know what is awaiting you is the next 2 days, which are full of debate. And I know you're going to be super excited and thrilled about those 2 days of debate as well. But it's luminaries such as Srimati Kiran Bedi ji, who essentially are people who give us the overall vision and will hopefully motivate and inspire you, so that tomorrow when you pick up that placard and raise that placard and you try to speak in committee, at that juncture, essentially you are going to make much more sense. Remember, you may be representing United Kingdom, the BJP or the Indian National Congress. But at the end of the day, try to think like Governor Ma'am does. She thinks first for the nation and then for everybody else. If you start doing things like that, where you put the nation's interest first and you put other interests second, automatically you're going to be having a lot of progress in both committee and I'm sure in actually the multilateral forums that we are simulating. I'm only hopeful that you have 2 days of conducive debate, and from the looks on your faces, you can see from the looks on your faces, I'm pretty confident. There's somebody wearing a mask, and that's great. I am not the host, otherwise I would have spotlighted you and that would have been phenomenal, because this actually truly shows the pandemic. So she's all dressed up. She's dressed up and I'm just getting a feed that she's here. She's here. All right. Now I'm just trying to describe a person who's wearing a mask and who's wearing a suit and a blazer below that and just look perfect. It was basically the story of our times, that you're all well dressed, but at the same point in time, that mask is necessary. I think we have her, and I'm just trying to find her on speaker view.
Yeah, it's on my bed. I was reading it.
Hello, ma'am. So good to see you.
Long time.
Very, very long time, and thank you very much for doing this. But you don't need any introduction, but let me do this in front of you, because this is so very important for young people to know. And I'm just, with your permission, going to do this in 30 seconds.
Please go ahead.
So, she's often celebrated for all her achievements. Like I said, guys, she's often celebrated for being the first woman IPS officer. She's celebrated for her numerous accolades. But from the few people who work in the organization in Puducherry, I can tell you this, that, Puducherry wouldn't have been the same had it not been for her. And the reason I mention this is because it had the highest number of COVID-19 patients per 1 lakh population in the country. And from that to now, it's become almost close to single digit numbers. And she's led from the front when it comes to the pandemic. It is really humbling to be able to welcome a role model who speaks less and does more, and who's a karma yogi who's propelling us towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is honestly an honor to be able to welcome now Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, Srimati Kiran Bedi ji. And she smiles when she's talking to young people, and therefore I'm looking forward to seeing that bright smile on her face when she addresses us all. But thank you, ma'am, for being here, and thank you for doing this.
So, Rishabh, you've been doing well. You've grown up. You're looking big.
Ma'am, last you saw me was in 2015.
That's right.
And since then, I've lost a little hair on the head and grown it on the beard. So,
so what are you doing these days?
But ma'am, these days I'm trying to juggle the iron and steel business and trying to keep the passion alive with boring these young people whenever they give me an opportunity. So because I started it, sometimes they call me back. They make the mistake of calling me back and say that now Kiran Bedi ma'am is coming, so please talk to her. We hope you'll talk some sense. And then I land up saying all of what I said. So, but ma'am, just to give you of course, you're aware about what the organization does, but in the last 5 years, there have been a few things that the young people have done. I've done nothing in the last 5 years, to be honest, apart from trouble Asha ji saying, when is Kiran ma'am coming back? And she said 2021, Rishabh, and she's kept her promise. But can we made a small video clip, which we'd like to show you.
Go ahead.
I am extremely happy to herald India's international movement to unite nations. I.I.M.U.N.
Rather than me rambling on, I thought it better to encapsulate that into a video and show you that video of what we've been doing in the last few years. But ma'am, now they're waiting, they're eagerly waiting for your address. So I'm just going to hand it over to you to speak about youth and nation building, because we keep looking at your Twitter statuses and we look at your Instagram updates. But now today we're getting a chance to speak to you live. So we'd love to hear from you if you can, ma'am, speak about youth and nation building for a bit.
Okay, Rishabh, I thought you'll have by now joined the civil services of United Nations.
I wish my father was kind enough, and I'm going to play this clip for him. And I'm sure I'm going to show this to him, saying that that's one of the routes that I wanted to take. But there are few who are as brave as you who've actually gone ahead and done that.
Good. I'm so glad that you've continued to stay with your passion and continue to spend your time and energy what actually is most dear to you. I wish you more energy, and may you continue to strengthen your movement.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
As regards the UN is concerned, you have given me a very interesting. Have you framed these questions? Recommended questions by moderate? Were you the one who wrote these questions?
Well, it's a team of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and then I ran through a few of them to stick and cross them. But yes, I can't take their credit, but it's young people who put that together.
Okay. Long ago, what has stayed with me, I read something long ago, but has stayed with me, It's called the ABCD of freedom. The ABCD of freedom, which applies so much to the youth. And what does the ABCD of freedom applying to the youth mean? Since I'm addressing the youth, it is for the youth. The A, the B, the C, and the D. A stands for ability. I think what India is really looking for an able youth. Youth which expresses and enhances its ability, whatever it has. Because every one of us is born with some ability. We just have to look for it, identify it, and keep sharpening that ability. Ability means also, if you notice, the latest education policy is talking about abilities.
Right.
So we see a freedom which is applicable to the youth of India or anywhere in the world. The B is the boundaries. B stands for boundaries. What happens is that a youth which understands its boundaries, the nation enjoys its democracy. Otherwise, it becomes mobocracy. A youth which doesn't understand its democracy, its boundaries, becomes more of mobocracy rather than democracy. So a youth which is ability-based, but understands its boundaries, whether it's with elders, boundaries which is within the law, boundaries which is within the society, norms, etc., is a youth which becomes much more productive. And the nation also becomes very lawful and strong. The third is the understanding its conscience, listening to its own conscience. If it's conscience oriented, which is looking at it or hearing his inner voice, which is made conscientious of its inner voice, called the conscience. Now, see, an able youth, boundary youth, conscientious youth, and the last D which is duty conscious, and it's also doing oriented. It's like hand skill, which is learning by doing, not just by hearing or saying, but doing. So that means it's very skilled, and it's also practicing its skills. That's again what the new education policy is going to be about doing. So I think I would look at Indian youth, and the challenges of the Indian youth would be the ABCD of freedom. More able, understands its boundaries, listens to its own conscience, which means it's becoming value-based, and doing is hands-on. That means the education is becoming the 3H, the head, the heart, and the hands. A youth which has its head at the right place, which has the heart, which is also emotionally quotient, which has emotionally well developed. And then comes the hands, which is skill. That means you are capable of earning and becoming more self-reliant. So I would think this will be my opening statement addressing the youth.
Ma'am, and you very articulately put it. You very articulately put the ABCD, and also the triple H, which you've spoken about. But ma'am, the question that I want to ask you, you said youth, of course, is the future of the country, and that's what we hear a lot of people speak about. But when ma'am, we look at you, we don't look at somebody, like you rightly said, who's why aren't you in civil services? We don't look at you just as a part of civil services or a part of a political party or a part of having done something in terms of the IPS and so on and so forth. Honestly, ma'am, I really look up to you, and I think young people across as a role model for putting the interests of the country first, which is why I want to ask and start with this, ma'am. What is your idea of India and nationalism, ma'am? And what is the kind of nationalism that tomorrow's leaders should imbibe today?
That I do nothing which hurts my country. I do nothing which brings any disrespect to my country. That to me, whether I'm having worked at the United Nations, I understand how much we all stand for our flags, respective flags. And when you say, and it's not say, when you are around in India conference, it doesn't say Kiran Bedi, it says India. You're known by the country you're coming from, not the name. Name is known later. But as a participant around such conferences, India said this, or Indian representative, you happen to be. So do nothing Do nothing which lowers the honor and prestige of your country.
Do nothing that lowers the honor and the prestige of your country. And ma'am, what would be then the 3 habits that you would tell a 16-year-old to inculcate? What would be the 3 habits that you think that you would tell the students to inculcate per se?
I think if nothing is without discipline. Nothing in life is achieved without discipline. So inculcation of personal discipline. Personal discipline, hunger for knowledge, I think is very important, is discipline, hunger for knowledge, and willingness to serve.
And willingness to serve. And serve you have, as countless people have who are part of our team and set up in Puducherry have told me. And that's why I was so keen that you make it for today's conversation, because before the pandemic ended, I wanted to get you to answer this. You've always believed in walking the talk, and you're somebody who's educated the youth about their rights. But ma'am, my question to you in this is, there are about 1 crore students who participate in our conferences all across. We give them also one of the few things as a target, saying that before you finish the conference, you have to plant a tree, only then you'll get a certificate. Ma'am, if I were to ask you this, you've on ground made so much of an impact, not just during the pandemic, but even before it. And you inspire young people across. What is that one thing that you would like to see in generation next? And what is the change that you would like them to bring about?
Nothing but sense of responsibility, personal discipline and sense of responsibility. Because the moment every youth start talking about not my rights, but my duties, my responsibilities are your rights. Your rights are my responsibilities, and my rights are your responsibilities. It will be a different world to live in.
So focus more on the karma yogi part. Don't focus on what your rights are. Focus more on the responsibilities that you have.
Yeah. I think if every one of us as an Indian or anywhere in humanity exercises a sense of responsibility, there will be very few accidents in this world.
Now, it's very rightly said that we should have a sense of responsibility as collective citizenry, as the next generation of leaders. We should also put the interest of the country together, and first also in many cases. But sir, but ma'am, my question to you is this: that in a world where you are essentially having countries put their interests first, is there a possibility the utopian name of the organization as it is kept is India's International Movement to Unite Nations? Is there a possibility in a world where everyone's putting their interests and country first, is there a possibility of uniting the world the Indian way?
Yes, in the spirit of peace and harmony. In the spirit of peace and harmony. If COVID can unite us by a virus, hasn't the world got united through virus? So can there be a spirit of peace and harmony. The value systems, peace and harmony, which benefits across everybody. That means our investments are less in weapon creation, more in good health creation.
More in good health creation, ma'am, you say. The health of the planet has healed because of the pandemic. One of the biggest plus signs that we see is that the original inhabitants of the world, ma'am, are coming out, and the secondary inhabitants were locked inside. Now, it's the World Environment Day celebrated with great aplomb in the United Nations and across the world. Ma'am, as one of the initiatives at the organization, and I think just across, with various youth organizations across, one of the things that we wanted to do is why not have a World Environment Week, not have a World Environment Day. Ma'am, your thoughts on actually fructifying this? Is this a possible thing where for 1 week we have a celebration around the World Environment Week? And probably, of course, I don't understand as much of economic policy as you do, but is it possible to keep the original inhabitants outside and the secondary inhabitants inside for 1 week? Because it was the most tranquil. I live in Bombay city, and we only hear the noise of cars passing by, but we never hear the birds chirping. For a change, during the pandemic and that lockdown, we heard the birds chirping. So is this a possibility, or is this again just a far-fetched dream of young people which may not happen?
You see, the day the world moves towards more of its needs only rather than wants, there's enough for everybody. Enough for everybody. The point, COVID, actually, one of the biggest message which the COVID taught us was focusing more on your needs rather than the wants. The moment we only come back to our essential needs rather than the greed, which is wants, the environment will never get damaged the way it did pre-COVID.
but ma'am, you've steered clear of answering that question. Is this a if I may just probe you to answer this again? Do you think that effecting a week down lockdown in every year, 5th June, hypothetically 5th June to 12th June every year, is that a possibility?
You will have a compensation of consumption the moment that week is over, like it happened in liquor sale. I can't forget that, because of liquor ban during the lockdown, there were miles-long liquor sales in a particular state, and it came in the newspapers. So therefore, the consumption, they became more of a fish after that. So self-restraint on a regular basis is better than getting drowned after a week.
It will become a fish market after a week, is what you are saying.
Yeah.
And ma'am, you faced many challenges in your life. You've in the different positions and capacities that you've held, you've faced many an adversity, and you've converted that adversity into an opportunity. Now, is there one challenge that defines Srimati Kiran Bedi ji? Is there one challenge that defines you, which you've overturned, which you've overcome, and which you'd like to narrate, which you've not narrated before?
Challenge, I think, is biggest challenge which every one of us faces is, how do we keep growing without your own family besides you? If you're a very strong family person with very strong family bonds, but as you grow out of it, and the family gets left behind and spreads all over, it's no more because they age. I think this is the challenge. How do you go on without them physically?
And ma'am, you've soldiered on. You've soldiered on and set an example for many young boys and girls to follow. And may I say, in a field such as politics, and this I wanted to touch upon, not at the start, but right now I want to ask you this, because it's always in my mind that in a field such as politics, which is often considered patriarchal, there are many who want to actually effect change and join politics and UPSC. There are few like me who want to stay behind and who do not take the plunge into active, bureaucracy or active politics. But ma'am, it's always there is that fear, dar lagta hai ki matlab, if my younger sister wants to join politics, as much as I encourage everybody else, sometimes I think saying, Atmi, no, you are better off doing ABC. Don't join UPSC, don't join politics. You've done both. Your advice to young people who are aspiring to join these two fields, especially young girls?
I've only done 1.5. I've not done both. I've done fully administration, but right. I've not done the politics the traditional way as it is known.
Right.
That way where there is a give and take. I do this for you and you do this for me. That's called electoral politics. I've done public administration in the public service sense, which also has a political element to it. But it is very rule-based. It is very law-based. But not give and take based. It's not transactional. My public administration is transformational. But the politics you're talking about is transactional, which I've not done. And that's not everybody's business, everybody's cup of tea. And if it is not your cup of tea, don't venture into it. Because that's business of public life. Everybody is not cut out for business. So if you are cut out for business, then I'll do this for you at this cost, provided you do this to me. That's called good business. You have to be naturally oriented towards this business of public life. I haven't done that. And if you're not oriented to it, then don't do it. Do that where there is no transaction, where it is, I have the responsibility to serve you. And I'll do it but I don't expect anything from you because I'm provided for.
But the business of politics is something that you did not indulge in, ma'am. But even UPSC is equally challenging. Becoming a bureaucrat, and you know, ma'am, when you become a bureaucrat at that juncture, there are so many other complexities that get involved. The fact that you may not be posted, transfer ho jayega, etc., and that it's not as rewarding if you are academically that oriented. Therefore, a lot of young people sometimes don't choose UPSC because of that. Because you've served distinctly both across the country and even internationally. Ma'am, your thoughts for young civil servant aspirants?
On the contrary, the UPSC is the most stable transformational service.
Okay. No,
no challenge. Only the challenge is you yourself. How much you want to give, how much you want to serve. The challenge is not to be transferred from Lakshadweep to Kanyakumari. That's not a challenge. You're home, you're in India. That's not a challenge. So the point here is, if you can be ready to move and like being from Kanyakumari, right, to Ladakh, what's the challenge? You're home, you're in India. But if one starts wondering, I have a right to only be in Ladakh, or I have only a right to be in Kanyakumari, that's your problem. So that's you the problem, not the UPSC.
I'm just asking, I'm just being the devil's advocate and asking you all the questions without any reference to Karan Thapar. but let me also take you to a very interesting aspect real quick, which is in terms of education. Ma'am, there are a lot of academicians who are watching this both on the live as we speak in the Zoom chat, and so also across all the Zooms that have been connected and on social media. Ma'am, the internationalization of education is taking place. But in the last few years, now we are seeing the Indianization of education that is also the counterweight or the balance that is happening. How important is it for the Indianization of education to take place? And what would your message be to the academicians and to the principals and trustees who are watching today?
I think the Indianization, in my limited understanding, is spiritualization of education, where it's bringing in the roots of civilization in it, our roots, where we are curious to know who am I and why am I here for. I think the curiosity, it's from consumption to curiosity, who am I? That's called the Indianization and spiritualization, where there's an inner discovery, where the science has no answer, who am I? If you see many YouTube programs these days, and even on Netflix, of near-death experiences, I think life is still, that is what is spiritualizing. It's called the rebirth, the karma theory, the Gita. It's all about who am I and what will impact be whatever I do. Is there a karmic bank which does not get proven by science, but is happening by experiences? So the moment one starts understanding that every thought and every deed of mine goes into a karmic account, of some account somewhere being kept, that basically means one would do no evil, think no evil. That to me is spiritualization of education. It's seeping in gradually. If you see the Netflix movie, there's a whole series now these days on near-death experience.
Right.
Which is going back to rebirth, the karmic theory, the karma, the yoga.
What you said, ma'am, is there is a karmic account, there is debit and credit that happens into that account. And as long as we understand that, I think our life will only have credits and not debits. That is a...
If the moment one becomes conscious and sensitive to it, your
Right.
every thought, word, deed is in alignment. And you are only one face and not many.
No, ma'am, very beautiful.
Life will change, politics will change, administration will change because the way it's delivered.
And that is very true what you mentioned, ma'am. From Ramana Maharishi's "Who am I?" to now Kiran Bedi's "Who am I?" But the answer should be, the question we should be asking is, who am I? And in that, ma'am, lies India's soft power, the power to export both our culture, our spirituality, and the understanding of the greater realm. That, if utilized along with the other proponents of soft power, ma'am, can push India forward in terms of being that Vishwa Guru or being the world leader that we envisage, and we hope that it will be. Many of these young people, of course, in the future will be in parliament in different places and pushing that message across in their own capacity. But ma'am, my question is this. You are also an ardent student of history. You know so much about India's past. If there is one example in India's history which shows you that it can unite the world, we can unite the world per se, what would that example be, ma'am?
The practice of yoga. And that's universal. The moment you are yogic, with the union of mind, body, soul, and the self, I think the same human being exists in every part of the world. It's yoga. And it has got universalized. The only thing is, it has to be understood. It's not power yoga. It's inner yoga.
It's not power yoga, it is inner yoga. And I think that's the beautiful answer to the question that I asked. And this is why she said that she's 1.5, not 2. Because otherwise the politicians answer it in such detail that the essence of it is lost. She answers it in the essence so that we can understand the point. But ma'am, let me, because you are answering briefly and because you are answering in a very articulate fashion, ma'am, this is one of my last questions. In fact, my second last question. What comes to your mind when I say the following words, ma'am? When I say India, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
My home.
Ma'am, when I say civil services, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
The civil services. It's all about serving people. It's a great privilege.
When I say history, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Roots.
And because we have a lot of 16, 15-year-olds, and I've put on 20 kgs in the pandemic, I must ask you this. When we say food, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
Made by my mother.
Made by your mother. When I say vacation, ma'am, has there been a vacation for you? And what is the first thought that comes to your mind when I say vacation?
Vacation is not outside. Vacation is within you.
These days, the vacation has been within us only because we've been indoors only. We've not gone outdoors. So I can say that on behalf of all the young people that we've been indoors. And but then again, what you said is very true. Ma'am, when somebody says religion, what's the first thought that comes to your mind?
Ethics.
And the last one, which I want to ask you, when I say I.I.M.U.N, ma'am, what's the first thought that comes to your mind? When I say India's international movement to unite nations, what's the first thought that comes to your mind?
The globe.
The globe. No, it's been a very interesting conversation. And before I let you go, ma'am, is it possible for me, on behalf of all these students who we put in this Zoom chat, to have at least one out of these students ask you a question?
You're welcome, as long as the last one, because I have another event to go to.
Done. So I'm going to just identify any one person who asked the question the first in the chat section. Okay, there we have it. You are an inspiration for many, ma'am. And Advait Pillai says you are an inspiration for many, but who is your inspiration? What was your inspiration in life?
Oh, it's not once in a while. I seek it every day, moment to moment. For me, morning reading, during the weekend reading, the events, their moments, their occasions. It's not once in a lifetime. If for me, every day, a fresh breath, freshness of thinking, freshness of reading, freshness of happening, which inspires me is inspiration. It's not what was yesterday is gone. I need it again. It's like good health, good thinking every day. It's a daily nutrition.
It's a daily nutrition. And today's dose of nutrition we've got, which is why from the 3 H's, I would like to say that Srimati Kiran Bedi ji, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be able to host you. Women are the real architects of society, and today we have somebody who's actually given us that nutrition, like she said, that she seeks on a daily basis. I think we've got that nutrition not just for today, but for a long period of time. Up until the next time we see you, ma'am, thank you very much for doing this, and look forward to hosting you again very soon. Thank you.
Let me wrap up with my last sentence. You talked about nutrition.
Right.
I've been saying every day, when you get up in the morning, ask yourself, do you want to be today in hell or in heaven? You choose heaven. The whole day becomes heavenly.
You choose heaven and the whole day becomes heavenly. From tomorrow, I'm going to get up. The first thing I'm going to do is choose heaven. I'm going to look upwards. I'm going to say, just like one of the other speakers who was slated to speak, who keeps looking at the heaven when he used to score centuries, Sachin Tendulkar, he used to look at the heavens and he used to say, thank you. I'm going to look at the heaven. I'm going to choose heaven every day.
No, I'm going to choose heaven within. Heaven is not outside. It's heaven within.
I meant heaven within, but just looking at the heaven outside and looking then within. But it's
outside within.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything is inwards and everything is within. That is very true. And Srimati Kiran Bedi ji, thank you very much on behalf of all the 26,000 students who work at I.I.M.U.N. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to be able to do this with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rishabh. Thank you.